I'm going to start by saying something quite controversial. I don't mind laugh tracks in comedies. I feel they can add to a comedy, and that whilst we do laugh at jokes alone, we tend to laugh more when we're with others. If anything, it proves we are a very communal creature, and this laugh track can provide comfort for us. But I'm not going to talk about laugh tracks or the scientific reasons behind them. Rather, I'm going to talk about the greatest comedy of all time, The Larry Sanders Show. At this moment, you are either thinking to yourself, The Who Show? Or you are saying to yourself, I completely agree. I don't think anyone who has sat and watched this show can deny its impact. I am not saying you have to like the show, but it really did change the course of comedy TV shows. As controversial as this may sound, I don't think the UK version of The Office is a bigger game changer as it's made out to be. In fact, I find it is The Larry Sanders Show, Garry Shandling's magnum opus, and the classiest sitcom of all time. By the way, these aren't my words. These are the words of Ricky Gervais. Ricky had actually met Garry in a three-part series along with Christopher Guest and Larry David in his Heroes of Comedy. I think this gives some suitable credit to the idea that without The Larry Sanders Show, The Office, whilst it may have existed, would have been a very different beast. So what made The Larry Sanders Show so special? I personally think it comes down to 3 points. We often talk about how good shows really start from the writing room. Shows like The Simpsons, in their heyday, had comedy writing greats like Conan O'Brien, George Meyer, Sam Simon, John Swartzwelder, and Al Jean. The Larry Sanders Show had the likes of Judd Apatow, Lester Lewis, John Ricci, Molly Newman, and Stephen Levitan. These individuals have been involved in other great comedies such as Modern Family, 30 Rock, and Frasier. In the director's chair for over half the episodes made was Todd Holland, who would go on to direct over 24 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. Todd Holland was also the director of the 1989 cult film The Wizard. Okay, maybe not the best credit, but this was still Garry's baby. He made the show, produced it, and was the main actor. 1/3 of all the episodes had his hand in the writing process, and he directed the majority of the final season. I think it helped that he was already established by this point. Garry Shandling had not only proven himself on the stage level as a stand-up comic, but he had also proven himself in the circuit of TV. The Garry Shandling show that had run prior to this show was a phenomenal success. By being in control, he had allowed for the show to be a consistent narrative and of good quality from the first to the 6th and final series. What's more, the show was born out of a rumour that Garry would be taking over Johnny Carson on the late-night circuit. Whilst it didn't come to fruition, it did build on a big point that has had an impact on many great shows: reality. Reality is a really hard thing to address. For Larry, who had experience working in the 1980s as cover for Johnny Carson, at one point being noted as the full-time cover for Johnny, he was aware of this. He was aware of this horribleness of the industry. And within the show within a show, it is a production of a production. And he was going to show behind the beauty, the real ugliness of the reality. We see, or at least we used to see, talk shows as the must-watch TV, with a charismatic host and a charming guest. The Larry Sanders Show was not charming. In fact, most of the episodes revolve around one of the main three suffering in some form, be it a horrible guest, alluding to how celebrities really are behind the scenes, personal problems, or misplaced sex tapes. Its use of sock and buskin, while British comedy has been doing this since the 1970s with the likes of Monty Python, allows the viewer to relate to the dynamics of the characters. The way Artie is hell-bent on keeping a tight ship, Hank is concerned with his own career and being Larry's best friend, and Larry himself being caught up in his own world and problems, builds a foundation which we have seen grow into shows like Arrested Development and Parks and Recreation. We see how all their problems tied into each other, and that the only result from this is that from their tragedies came our laughter. Usually the first thing highlighted in this show is the lack of a laugh track and how much it has an impact on other comedies. Rather, if you look at the production side of things, You see how there are so many small things that allow for this comedy to really breathe. Rather than having a setup such as Friends, where you'd be looking at it as though you're almost watching it from a stage perspective, you're given a almost candid, voyeuristic reality view, that you are watching it almost as though you are present in the room. Notice how the show is shot in a high quality video camera style, akin to an actual talk show, but the moment it is shooting something the viewer wouldn't see, it goes to film and is shot by the hand. Again, something that many mockumentary style comedies that we all know and love would use as an enforcing element to their own comedies and help build to their own punchlines. Three is the magic number, and this show knows it. I don't believe that comedy has to have three main characters. However, I think three different styles allow for different systems and balances to occur that result in a very unique and self-branded awareness that the comedy is no longer about the individuals, but about their relations. So far I have discussed that these characters are great, but I haven't really discussed why they are great. I think in part due to the quality of the acting. Rip Torn was legit nuts, but also a good actor. And Jeffrey Tambor is a naturally strong actor with proven presence. He has proven this in shows like Arrested Development and Transparent. I think that when all three characters are together and having to interact, this is when the show is at its best. For example, in Season 1, Episode 8, Larry's wife invites Artie and his wife over for dinner. Artie doesn't reject it, but is anxious to say yes because his job is to keep Larry happy, which means he keeps his job. Artie speaks to Larry, who is seeking for Artie to reject the idea, but Artie won't shoot it down, so ends up having to go along with the plans. Larry tells his wife that night of his anxieties over having to entertain guests and making it all about how it is a problem for him. As a result, Larry ends up dragging his assistant to come, who mentions it to the booker and Hank's assistant in the kitchen as an off-the-cuff comment. The booker, Paula, played by Janine Gruffalo, is angry as she thinks Larry's assistant is getting a promotion, showing her career ambitions. But Hank's assistant, rather than venting, mentions this theory as fact to Hank and it will happen at Larry's house. Hank, who desires nothing more than Larry's friendship, goes into Larry's office and then this scene occurs.
Because I have here 2 tickets for tonight's Holyfield Bow fight, and I would like to bring you.
Let me see him. That's great. Let me see him. Let me see him. Come on, Hank. Let me see. These are vitamins.
Please invite me to your party. I don't have any tickets. There are no tickets.
Hank, I was just going to invite you.
So in short, we've seen 3 main characters and 2 secondary characters demonstrate multi-layered goals and ambitions, but all of them are tied intrinsically into the other and what the other is doing. See, the show could easily be summarized rightfully as a strong comedy and something that serves as a great influence on future comedies for the next few decades. But when I consider the Sock and Buskin, the show within the show, and how each character has purpose and a narrative within themselves, I'm realizing this is less of a great comedy. This is a Shakespearean masterpiece. So much of this show touches on the Bard and Greek comedies that you begin to realize that despite its modern premise and setup, this show goes far beyond anyone's life that's watching this now. Hi, thank you for watching this. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to tune into this. I will be honest, this is probably my first time I've ever really dedicated myself to making a full-out video like this. There are still learning experiences that I'm going through at the moment. I like to think everything I make that I learn something new with each video. Eventually the quality will become what I would say is 2020 standard rather than probably being 2006 standard. If you enjoy this, please let me know. I do appreciate any form of feedback. Please be gentle with me, and thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope to make more soon and to hear from you all. Bye.